Alright, so here we have that baked in texture. Okay. So we transversed material to texture. Now we need another step before we go on. Before we do that step, I just want to kind of point out that if I wanted a higher color brass, I could have went in here and turned on Final Gather. Okay, so know that there's a couple different ways you can approach this. Either way works. One thing that you should know though is sometimes when you turn on Final Gather, it fixes things like this. I'm not really too concerned with this because back in Photoshop I'm going to be tweaking it some, and I wanted the dull looking brass. Okay, not gold. I wanted really rustic looking brass. That's why I didn't turn on Final Gather. Here I'm just going to use the clone stamp tool a little bit. The next step is adding this sphere to a layer. Okay, so here I've taken this sphere, add it to a layer so I can turn it off. You must be able to turn it off or this will take forever and it will turn out black. Okay. We're going to bake the OCC now. So batch bake mental ray, square box. Try that again. Sometimes it doesn't load all the way for some reason. There we go. So it loaded all the way this time. So the only thing you need to change here is the color mode needs to be occlusion, and the test item is occlusion. So test item period or underscore OCC. Doesn't have to be that, but it must be different from the one that you had before. All right. Again, you should have this lower quadrant open so you can see when it completes, and let's convert. While that's plugging away, let's look at this map here in Photoshop that we did before to save us some time. You can see that I've taken a little bit of time and worked on putting a layer down, okay? And this layer is just the clone stamp tool. Sorry, all those boxes getting away. So I've made a new layer, and taken the clone stamp tool, turned it on a real low flow, and just kind of use Alt, capture some, and paint these down a little bit, okay? That way they are gone. I don't mind these other ones on the side. But that's just to fix up that map a little bit. Incidentally, if you wanted to like do this, let's say I needed a brighter looking brass, I could take this map and go edit, copy, merge, edit, paste, and then I can go in here to image, adjustment, exposure, and rank the exposure up just a little bit, and it makes a hotter looking brass. So that's another way to do that. Final Gather works too. Again, Final Gather would probably remove some of these anomalies that are showing up, but I want to keep some of those anomalies. Another thing I want to do while that's cooking in the background is go in and show you that we need a texture for noise. Here's a texture. This is a texture of paper. I'm going to be using it for the noise of brass. Okay. Now I want that noise to appear. Noise conveys interest. What I'm going to do is just paste that in here. And I only want the brownish stuff, not the darker brown. I just want the stuff in the middle. So I'm just going to arrange this a little bit better. And then we're going to turn this into something like linear dodge add. Okay, and then you're going to get, wow, blown out bright brass. Okay. All I want is a little bit. So it makes this noise value in here. But what you choose is up to you. Again, there's a lot of play here because let's say I wanted a lot of noise, but I didn't want bright brass. Well, again, if you just take this and go edit, copy, merge, edit, paste, you can turn down the exposure value and then you get the dull looking brass with the high noise. Okay, so there's so many different ways you can do this. I can't stress it enough, but trust me when I say that, you know, the noise really does help convey interest. Okay, so that looks like it's done cooking in the background. What that did is made this. That is a map on my hard drive now, and I'm just going to open that up. Okay, I'm going to duplicate this layer over to my color map one. And then turn it on multiply. All right, so this is what we have. We have the shadows, okay, baked in to show this groove. Here's without it. Here's with it. We have a couple variations we can kind of choose from. Do I want bright? Do I want dark? Do I want to play around with layers a little bit? There's so much to this. Here's a really contrasty looking brass. So there is a lot of ways to do this. I can't stress it enough. So let's go out and save this as my final map and show you how to kind of apply it. I'm going to keep the layers because I'm not really sure, you know, which one I want to keep yet. And that's always the case. Every time I do this, it's something a little bit different. Hypershade. So I'm just going to pull that map from the hard drive. And bring it in here. Now, to handle spectral highlights, that's where a blend comes in handy. Okay, so a blend is in game. So if I use the blend as the catalyst for the spectral highlight, and this as the texture for that under color, I should get a nice item that is game friendly. There we go. I now have brass. And you can see some of these you might want to clone stamp those out, but other than that, the noise value's there, everything's there. It's interesting, and what's best about this thing is there's no lights in this scene that are on right now. Like I have 6 on the keyboard. If I hit 7, it looks like this. If I hit 6, it looks like this. The point here is, if it's in game, I don't have dynamic lights available to me. So usually what happens is it'll be like this. Let's say I wipe out all these lights and go into high quality rendering. This is what it will look like in game. The only thing I would worry about is going in here and go into UV texture editor and moving some of these UVs on this pole in a little bit. I'll just move a couple because it is very monotonous to do this. So let's see this seam right here. If I grab a UV in that area, I could take this UV and move it in one skosh using W on the keyboard, and one skosh on the other side. And you can see in that area that the seam is magically gone. Okay, so that's one thing that you should do, is fix all your seams. There's ways to get around doing it all at the same time, but yeah, they're just as monotonous as anything else. Sometimes a cage might help, or this movie in tool, as I call it, so you can just kind of skosh it in a little bit. Again, play around. There's a lot of answers, or a lot of questions and a lot of answers, but what the main premise of this lesson is the fact that now you can formulate your own textures based upon a render and based upon materials in Maya. All right, so enjoy. Please move on to the next video.